So there was a problem with the original feed, the YouTube feed. So I just started another live broadcast, and I see that two folks were able to figure that out. So good for you. I'm glad you can join us tonight. And there's two folks here on this cold night in Frenchtown. I think it's about 10 degrees out tonight. Warm enough in here for you?
It'll do.
Good. Okay. I can turn that other auxiliary heater on if we need to. So tonight we're just going to discuss what we've learned about the Dhamma and how using Shamatha-Vipassana meditation to deepen concentration has been the foundation for the refined mindfulness to integrate the Eightfold Path. And just to put all this in context, you know how important context is, or at least I think that context is important. The Buddha awakened to what is known today as dependent origination, which is probably one of the most misunderstood and misapplied teachings, usually just using the word dependent, leaving out origination, and then misapplying or connecting the words interdependent or interconnected to dependent. It results in something quite different than what the Buddha awakened to, which is that ignorance of Four Noble Truths leads to all manner of confusion, deluded thinking, and ongoing suffering. It was an incredibly profound awakening that, when seen initially, it almost seems too simple to bother with, and I think that's why there's been many attempts to change what the Buddha taught to allow it to continue to ignore ignorance of Four Noble Truths, and that's exactly what's happened. When you look at the 12 links of dependent origination, you see how they directly lead to the formation of ongoing confusion, deluded thinking, and suffering, and how they relate to other things that the Buddha taught that are as important to understand, such as the 5 clinging aggregates, the 3 marks of existence. There's lines in dependent origination that point directly to that. And then the Buddha taught, his first teaching was the Four Noble Truths, which includes the path, the Eightfold Path, leading to developing profound wisdom of the true nature of things, meaning understanding Four Noble Truths. And that's all that the Buddha taught for 45 years. Everything the Buddha taught was taught in the context of dependent origination, Four Noble Truths, and gaining insight into 3 marks of existence: the impermanence of all things, the not self characteristic, meaning that we base a self or describe a self to ourselves based on wrong views that are ignorant Four Noble Truths, which results in the 3rd mark of existence of ongoing suffering. So, and often when I say it like that, that all sounds pretty confusing. But that is just the nature of it. Those things are only confusing, and the Dhamma itself, the Buddha's teachings, are only confusing because of this incredibly powerful veil of illusion that a self rooted in wrong views succumbs to allow it to ignore its own ignorance. The longer I teach and the longer I'm practicing what the Buddha taught, the more powerful I see ignorance in the world and how hard it is to recognize it and develop wisdom where there was once ignorance. But of course, once it's done, and all of you, everybody that comes to this class and develops it, as they develop it, they realize that there was nothing there in the first place. But it's so difficult to come up and develop concentration and the refined mindfulness to actually be able to see ignorance of Four Noble Truths. So that's the intro tonight. Kevin, I'd like to hear how your practice has been developing and your insight into the 3 marks, and any questions you might have too.
It's been a very long, I think, and fruitful year with my practice and with learning about the Dhamma. It seems like as soon as I heard about it and what it was, I just knew it was right, and have been trying to integrate it and learn it and review it. So my my meditation practice is steady, 20 to 30 minutes twice a day, almost every single day for a long, long time now. And after I do the meditation, which, during which I've had lots of non-distracted time, but then there's still, it's back and forth with distraction, non-distraction, just like nature of human beings.
Yeah.
But after that, then every day, twice a day, I review the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. I just go over it step by step in my mind and think this is okay. This is like a contemplation. It's separate from my meditation, but it's almost like a continuation, but it's after I'm done, just trying to focus on my breathing. And I think at first it was hard to remember what they were, like there's a lot of memorization or whatever, but now it just seems like it comes so naturally. There's such a progression of them, and it's such a wheel, and they seem like they really make so much sense. So it's been really a fruitful year, and with many steps forward and a few steps back, and go. But I'll keep meditating, keep going. Since you brought up that
Anatta? Anicca?
the Anapana Sati Sutta. A few weeks ago, I was just reviewing that and going over it a lot. It's like a wonderland of the Dhamma. It has everything that there is, and even more like the 7 factors of enlightenment things too, and trying to remember and keep those in mind, and that might be a goal or just part of what an enlightened person might know always.
Yeah. I would say that it's both that, Kevin. The 7 factors of awakening are a goal to hold in mind, and also to recognize when we've been able to do that. And in that sutta, the Buddha finally concludes by saying, when these are held in mind, these are my words, but this is the quality of an awakened human being's mind. It's living in that. You mentioned meditating for 20 or 30 minutes, but you gradually developed that. You didn't start out that way.
Yeah, I started out just with minutes.
Yeah.
First, a couple of minutes.
That's remarkable. I remember the first class was up in Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
Most successful meditators, at least the ones that I've taught, started that way with just a few minutes, rather than, often you're taught that you need to be meditating for 45 minutes or an hour right off the bat, and most people just can't sustain it, especially when there's not the framework of the Eightfold Path being developed at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's just that way too. It took me a long time just to remember what the factors of the 8 factors, what they were, just the words themselves. Yeah, and then you can start integrating it. And it's just that way. It's a gradual thing for most people.
I can see how I have integrated it in my work, as I work. I think I approach it so differently now. Work is work. Work is irritating and stressful, and it's long, and it's repetitive, no matter what you do. So even in my work, it's been like that. But I found that I've approached it much more, just with much more ease, and thinking, as I approach people, I'm thinking, okay, these people have an issue, they have suffering, they have worries, and I'm just there to listen to their worries, and I can help alleviate their worry and their stress. So even if it might be very minute, or if otherwise I might look at it like, I can't believe somebody could complain about that, or they don't know this, but they don't. they're all ignorant about their health, you know, so I'm able to now, much of the time before I enter a room, I take a breath and I think, okay, well, we'll find out what's happening with this family, and then we just go through that. You know, and I don't stay maybe mindfully present completely every second of every visit or day, but have those moments.
That's remarkable. I mean, that's why we developed the Dhamma, so we can live the mundane moments of life peacefully without needing them to be any different than they are, including in stressful situations like you're describing. You're able to remain mindfully present with what's occurring. That's an awakened mind. That constant, even at the end of the Anapanasati Sutta, where the Buddha talks about that mindfulness is constant. That's what he's pointing to. It's not a way of escaping the world. It's a way of being immersed in the world, mindfully present, without the need for anything to be any different than it is. And that's its own reward, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's worth the price of admission. Thank you for that. That's great. Diane, how's your Dhamma practice? What'd you learn? How has it changed you?
I don't think I can be as articulate as Kevin.
I don't think I could be either.
I have remained relatively steadfast in meditation, and I seem to get tripped up on the stuff that comes up, the ignorance with which I lived my life for too many years. The Dhamma, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, seems so obvious to me now. And often I feel myself kind of screaming, why aren't we taught these things from the beginning of our lives? And I think because of the stuff that has come up about my own life, which I think it's I don't know the word for it, but it's so easy to see the mask, the facade, and that there's really nothing that this ego was trying to make. There's nothing there, and it's good, or I mean, it's okay, or whatever the word would be. When I'm at work, it's so because of the things that have come up in my life, and I've finally learned to let them come and not panic and not dash out apologies all over the place, as initially I felt I should, or something like that. I now can allow them the insights to come, and then allow further insights to come to go beyond that. And so when I'm working with people, it's so, and then because of the personal experience of dealing with just my own life and my own mind, there comes a natural compassion. And you know, the words "be gentle with yourself" have been so revolutionary to my life. I feel like most of my life I've been extremely hard on myself, harsh. And learning, I mean, just take, okay, so as I've learned this in my life, when working with people, it is so much easier to listen and have compassion and, you know, pass on the gentleness. And it's amazing how people respond to, it's okay to be gentle. You're okay. It's just like, I mean, it's a breath of fresh air or you know, pure water to them. That they too don't need to be unmercifully harsh with themselves. I'm exceedingly grateful. It's amazing too, I think, how gratitude wells up so much more easily and frequently, and almost becomes a state of mind through the practice without even thinking about it. When things go wrong, you know, okay, it's not the way I wanted it to, but I'm thankful for, and I can, you know, get through it. You know what I was thinking on the way here? I was thinking, what's this all about? What's it all about? And I thought, why are you going to meditation class? And you know what I came up with? I just really like the people. I like being with people who want to want to just be, and aren't striving to compete or be better than or anything like that. It's just, to me, I think the people here are just plain, you know, any adjective would not be sufficient, but good, nice, you know, healthier. Well, I mean, I don't want to get into comparing either or anything like that, but it's just, I like. I think something that is based in loving kindness, that's practiced with the not self first, is, well, I was going to say miraculous, but so often we aren't taught to love and take care of ourselves first, and that because it seems like selfish or something like that. But I think this, if I don't put the oxygen mask on me, I have found that in so many areas of my life, that if I don't take care of my thoughts, my life, my body, you know, whatever is in my sphere first, I get really messed up. And it's, but when I do take care of, I mean, it's like when I don't meditate, I can tell my day doesn't go quite the same way. But when I do meditate, and when I don't take care of myself, there isn't the peace that comes when I do, and I've just realized that that's really important. And because I have experienced this in my own life, it's also easier to share and encourage with other people to, you know, to take care of themselves, because that seems to be a cultural thing throughout this Western culture to, you know, kind of covertly take care of yourself and in a not necessarily healthy way.
Thank you. So what? It's the kind of compassion that has us trying to help others before we've learned to help ourselves is one of those very powerful and subtle strategies to continue to ignore our own ignorance. The Buddha didn't try to do that. The Buddha awakened before he tried to help other people, because then he could marry wisdom with his compassion. He referred to himself prior to his awakening as an unawakened bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is a human being who has great compassion for other people, but that unawakened part means that they don't understand the most effective and loving way to express that compassion. And once the Buddha awakened, of course, he lived that great compassionate life, but from a place of wisdom, of understanding. And so then we can be truly effective. And your practical, Kevin, your practical description of purposely making yourself mindfully present for others, free of any other distraction that they'd be different than they are, is the essence of that. Because you have wisdom that to be true. And you do that too, Diane, from what you've told with your interactions with your clients too. It really is the difference between an effective Dhamma practice and doing something that's just chasing the ideal that there's something wrong with me and I need to fix it. And that's the essence of not being gentle with yourself, isn't it? Always trying to be fixing a broken self, because the judgment that I'm broken in the first place is a harsh judgment. It's not being gentle with ourselves. We learn that through understanding our own confusion, deluded thinking, and resulting suffering from developing an understanding of that we didn't do anything wrong. A true understanding of ignorance is that you just didn't learn how things really are. And so as you start developing this and seeing the reality of the Buddha's teachings, it's just a big relief. There's no judgments left there. You mentioned how you love coming here because of the people. I feel the same way. And it's really remarkable what's developed here in Frenchtown, New Jersey. In all three Sanghas, all the Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday classes, the Sanghas there's not a lot of overflow between, there's not a lot of, they're different people in each, for the most part. And it's remarkable how we've all become so supportive of each other, how we've all developed the Dhamma to a certain point. But one of the reasons why, and I hope I can express this accurately, and not to put other people down or other Sanghas, because we restrict ourselves, or we remain focused on what the Buddha taught. That's all we're doing here. I've been part of other Sanghas. Some local, there was a Sangha in Yardley I used to go to. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that, but I'm not putting them down. They're typical of having a topic of the day in which they'll talk about, and sometimes they'll even bring guest speakers in, or they'll listen to something that a modern so-called Buddhist psychologist or psychiatrist might be teaching, or something different, something that an individual has developed, and that'll be the topic. And that when that used to happen here, people said, "Why don't you talk about this person, or why don't we listen to one of these tapes, or why don't we do this and why don't we do that?" That creates a Sangha that's always looking at a topic to investigate rather than investigate the Dhamma. And so the whole Sangha just becomes one big distraction based on the way that they run what they're doing. It's always what's next. How did somebody interpret this? What's this person's teaching on suffering or on compassion or on mindfulness, a new application of mindfulness? And there's never any real cohesion within the Sangha, is there? Because there's no central focus. The Buddha talked about that. In fact, it's even mentioned in the Anapanasati Sutta. The importance of staying focused on the Dhamma in and of itself, free of distraction. And that's what really unites people. And it's ultimately what ends up uniting the mind and the body, because there's no other distraction. It's just this singular focus on what an awakened human being taught. You started by saying, I don't know the exact words, but how come we're not taught this right from birth? that's one of those questions. I mean, I know you weren't seeking a real answer, but the answer is because of the nature of the world to ignore ignorance. We can't be taught this at birth because the world is here to support ignorance, not to support awakening. It goes against the grain. It even goes against the grain of modern Buddhism to awaken, doesn't it? Because in modern Buddhism, you're taught, well, you can't awaken. It takes endless eons to awaken. The Buddha never taught that. He said, do this. Develop this proper meditation practice within the framework of the Eightfold Path and gain full understanding of Four Noble Truths. And bingo, you're awakened. And we're talking, every class, one of the things that's most remarkable to me, Matt and I were talking about this too last month, is every class, nearly everyone talks about gaining the insight necessary towards awakening. We're not talking about the newest mindfulness technique or a beautiful poem, which is wonderful, or the greatest podcast I heard, or the greatest TED Talk. We talk about gaining insight into the three marks of existence. And that is remarkable. In all the years I've been part of modern Buddhism, I've never been part of a Sangha that does what we're doing here. And that truly is remarkable. So I guess I got off on my horse a little bit, but it really is true. That's the essence of what we're doing here, is awakening and nothing else. So.
You know what, in my question of what's it all about, what are we doing this for kind of thing, one of the things that ran through my mind was, personally speaking, as I come to understand my mind and the factors of the non-self and the ego and everything, I'm finding out more of talents that I have or skills, and I'm not saying this in an ego way, but it's finding out more of, and again, who I am, what gifts I have to give, to share with the world. And I was thinking when I was driving, it's not that long a drive. I must have been, anyway, I was thinking, boy, if we, could raise our children and be raised with, not worrying about all this people-pleasing ego stuff that we get into, and just develop a person's skills, find out their natural bent. Boy, well, that's, utopian kind of talk, but anyway, it's and the other thing I think that I find more remarkable than anything is I found home inside. It's talk about the refuge of meditation is I look forward to it, to coming home inside, and that's probably the best gift I've ever had, given myself.
When meditation is engaged in within the right framework, it becomes a true refuge, because it's not something that we're using to escape anything, and we're not chasing anything within meditation. It's just there. It's part of that broader framework that is a true refuge. Again, it's something that is rather uncommon. It's strange that there's so many people today that would claim that they're practicing mindfulness or that they're meditators, and they're getting nowhere with it. I still think about that call I got, it's probably over a year now, from this long-term meditator, and he was in a panic. And he says, I got this, I got that, I got to have a beautiful wife, a great house in New Hope, Newtown, new cars in the garage, great kids, great job. And he said, I feel like I got nothing. And he said, I've been meditating for 20 years. And when he said that, I had an idea what he was going to say. And I said, well, tell me about your meditation practice. Well, I sit down and I focus on nothing. I knew he's doing what is taught as a common meditation practice, that the whole point of meditation is to empty your mind and allow their true Buddha nature to arise. And of course, the Buddha never taught nothing like that. I said, well, say that again, won't you? He says, well, I get my meditation, I focus on nothing. And I could almost hear the light bulb go off through the phone in his own mind. For 20 years, he's been focused on nothing, and that's what his life experience is, nothing. The Buddha never taught that. We use meditation to, as we learned in the Anapanasati Sutta, we use meditation to deepen concentration so that we're not distracted by our own wrong views in meditation. And then we have the framework to recognize that. And that's practicing true compassion with ourselves. That gives us the ability to understand other people's suffering because we understand our own. And it goes right back to how I started tonight. We recognize through a well-concentrated mind framed by the Eightfold Path our own ignorance of Four Noble Truths. And it brings us right back, allows us to stay focused on the only thing the Buddha ever really taught, to recognize that. So, remarkable class. Any other questions or comments about this, about what we're talking about?
I sort of, I told you I was reading this book like a year ago or something. Yeah. I think it's over my head. And it was just so deep that I wasn't really, well, I was trying to understand it and trying to rock it, but it really is, the center of the book is the Anapanasati Sutta. I mean, it says, this is it. This is the nutshell of what it is. And he goes through a very long explanation before he introduces it, which you can get lost in. And then this part in the middle is all about it. But then he gives other readings from the Pali Canon also. And there's this one I was just reading, and it also comes from the Majjhima Nikaya. Yeah. So this is 118, and this one is like number 123 or something like that. But I thought it was, if I may,
please.
It's out of context because I don't know when it was given. Like you would know in what context and where he gave it, and often he does say where they were in this book. But this one it says, "You may, Ananda, also keep in mind this marvelous and wonderful quality of the Perfect One. Knowingly arise feelings in the Perfect One. Knowingly they continue. Knowingly they cease. Knowingly arise perceptions in the Perfect One. Knowing they continue. Knowing they cease. Knowingly arise thoughts in the Perfect One. Knowingly they continue. Knowingly they cease. This, Ananda, you may also keep in mind as a marvelous and wonderful quality, the Perfect One." Wow. So if you read that, it's like, that's, he realized even still in meditation or in his life as the Perfect One, that, thoughts arise, feelings arise, and they cease.
And think about thank you so much for that, the significance of the Buddha constantly reminding us, even through his own, using himself as an example of the arising and the passing away of everything. Everything is impermanent. He continues to come back to that point. Rather than trying to establish some kind of conceptual permanence, meaning an idea of compassion or even an idea of suffering, everything arises and passes away. And he's reminding Ananda, I mean, that's even more significant.
Yeah, the person who's about as close as anyone, or really was the closest.
Yeah. Well, it seems, and this is my own speculation, but reading about Ananda's questions and where he pops up here and there throughout the Pali Canon, he was someone who had a very analytical mind, it seems, but to the point where it was a distraction to him. Mm-hmm. Even when the Buddha described, Ananda was saying, I think I finally got dependent origination, and the Buddha knew that he didn't at that point. And he kind of scolded Ananda, saying, this is very deep and profound. And you don't have it yet. You got to look at it a little bit more. And here he's coming back to that, which is a theme throughout dependent origination. What arises passes away. Don't hold on to it. Don't make an identity over any of this stuff. Even a perfected one doesn't do it. And even a perfected one is continually mindful of it. Mm-hmm. It's an aspect of an awakened mind to be mindful of the arising and passing away of even my own perceptions in this moment. Thank you so much for bringing that up. It really is the essence of the Dhamma. And it's such a... when you finally start understanding the nature of impermanence, it it brings with it the greatest freedom. Because then you truly understand what Lao Tzu said. Once you understand the impermanence of all things, you'll let go of everything. Why hold on to anything? Even in this moment, why hold on to it? It's impermanent. Whether it's an idea, an ideology, an upset, or a real object, a piece of chocolate cake. Why hold on to it? And in that way, we can be fully mindfully present with something that in the past may have been distressing to us, because we know it's impermanent. And we know it's our job as an awakened human being to be here, to be present, if we're to live our life. It's great. Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments before we finish?
Do you realize that when you look historically how utterly contrary that is to the world at large? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I can remember, growing up, things were passed down from generation to generation because, it was lasting, and this will last, and everything. In my growing up years, it was, this is going to be forever, and always, and it just, God, there's a barrage of thoughts going through my head of the permanent.
Well, but that goes
everything.
right back to what you were saying about the world. The world. Think back about the pharaohs and how they buried the pharaohs. They buried them with all their stuff so they could have their stuff forever. I mean, they believed it, and they created rituals about holding on to the stuff that you had here. So, that's true about a lot of shamanic cultures too. That somehow we can manipulate impermanence to a way that there's no such thing. Of course, impermanence has always been here. And the Buddha awakened to that, the foolishness of trying to create any identity based on any type of permanence, the essence of dukkha, the essence of gaining insight into the three marks of existence. And yet we want to create all kinds of strategies to ignore it. There was an email that, thank you for the email. And I hope I wanted to add a little bit to the response about religion. People can have a difficulty having their own established religion. Let's say that someone's a Christian. When you present them with another religion to say, why don't you look at this? But the Buddha didn't teach a religion. And if it's remembered that it's not a religion, it doesn't have to contradict anybody's own religion. In other words, you can be a Christian without being threatened by taking on another religion. Of course, as you develop an understanding of what the Buddha actually taught, that might challenge your own beliefs. But the Buddha never taught a religion. He never taught anything that in fact, he was insistent to not establish it as a religion. It's simply a way of thinking correctly. And you can't even call it a philosophy unless you want to look at philosophy that way.
Religion can block Buddhism, though, because so many religions are, if you don't hold fast to this central tenet,
yes,
then the Buddha would be another false god, and you can't allow it.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a lot of thought. I don't even thought. I don't even know the right word. There's a caution against meditation in general, in many Christian applications, and it usually goes something like this: that if you create a blank slate in your mind, then the devil's going to get in there. Well, how can that be? I mean, just think about that. Just saying something like that, but that is what is insisted upon often. There was even a senator that said that. He was referring to the evils of yoga and meditation, hoping to legislate against that. This is a Southern senator, but not that long ago, within the last 10 years. And I always had the thought that if God was all powerful, how does he let the devil get in there and mess everything up in the first place? But you can't. I mean, and I even asked that question when I was in parochial school, and I got hit. I literally got hit with a stick for asking the question. But you're going to say something.
In the studies that I've done of Christianity, because I was, steeped in raised in fundamentalism. And I can remember in a white organdy dress with my black patent leather shoes and bows on my socks and things, sitting in Sunday school in a white little chair, and we were singing a song about streets paved with gold, and I thought, ugh, how boring. I don't want to go anywhere where there's streets paved with gold. And from then on, but I was really scared about the thought, and I looked around like maybe one of the sweet-smelling teachers would see my thoughts and I'd get swatted. But anyway, so that began my search. And one of the things that one part of the process was reading just the red letter words that Jesus spoke in the New Testament. And then what I really started to focus on was the Beatitudes. And I think if you take the Beatitudes out without any commentaries by Paul or anybody else, you've got a pretty good thing, or not philosophy, but path. But I've been watching mysteries from Netflix, and I'm telling you, I am being introduced to more corrupt thinking.
Well, so yeah, that's the nature of that too. So stop watching it. The problem with the Beatitudes.
I think this is pertinent because I think it's really important that we understand what our minds can do and how they can be corrupted.
Well, sure, but that's the point. They can be corrupted by not recognizing the true nature of the world. That's the Four Noble Truths. Exactly. So the problem with the Beatitudes is, and that's not the right way to say it, the problem with it, the difficulty with it is we can't act that way because we're deluded, because we don't understand the true nature of the world, because we have wrong views of self in relation to the world. It would be wonderful if we could just hang the Beatitudes up on the wall, everybody would read them once, and we just act that way. But of course, the Beatitudes have been around for 2,000 years. It hasn't changed anything, has it?
But that's
really?
Because a lot of people had a commentary on it, and they thought that just like your, you tried to keep Sangha pure in the Pali Canon, in what the Buddha taught. That's what happened to. It didn't stay pure. Christianity didn't stay.
Well, here's where I shouldn't have got into this tonight. This is the difference between, if there was such a person as a historical Jesus, that doesn't, for the sake of argument, it doesn't really matter whether there was or not. What he taught was a way to be. What the difference between Jesus and all the other prophets, and the Buddha was never a prophet, was he didn't teach that we should be a certain way. He taught us how to awaken. And as a consequence of awaken, we would naturally be and fulfill the Beatitudes. He's the only teacher that ever taught a way of changing our thinking, a direct way, rooted in meditation and framed by an Eightfold Path. And he did not teach a religion. He wasn't. Another significant difference is the intention behind anything. So if we want to believe in historical Jesus or any of the prophets, their intention was salvation. To the Buddha, that was a foolish notion. See, I don't want to argue with you, Diane. I'm pointing out the difference.
I don't think that's what the initial thing was.
Okay, I didn't mean to get into a talk about religion tonight. The only point that I want to make is that Buddha wasn't teaching religion. He was teaching a way to change our thinking. Whether other people wanted to do that, that's fine. But there's a significant difference that should be acknowledged, and it's one of the reasons why modern Buddhism has gotten to be so confusing, is that we've insisted to make it a religion rather than just what it was presented as. And we've made it fit religious connotations, and in that way it's gotten diluted. So, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I don't want to get into a long discussion about religion. That never goes anywhere. So, any other questions about the Dhamma or comments?
Could go on like that. Even Buddha addresses that, he says, without recourse to faith, the cherished opinions, to tradition, to specious reasoning, and to the approval of views pondered upon. So he says, be wary of that.
Yeah, he avoided it completely. Even within the Dhamma, he insisted that we talk about the Dhamma. And there were many people, even during the Buddha's time, that got upset because they were so enamored with just a debate over their own beliefs that became almost their own religion, just the constant debate of this is the right view and all. And it never goes anywhere. And I should try to avoid doing it here because it doesn't go anywhere.
I think the most important thing that you said is that through practice of the Dhamma, we be what we.
Yeah, we recognize if we engage in the Dhamma the way it's presented, we recognize the whole point of it is to recognize wrong views and let them go, not hang on to them, not debate them, not trying to make them fit other things, and that's just the way it is, and it works. it brings a calm and peaceful mind. And that's all that it promises. Again, it's an important thing to remember. The Buddha never saw himself as a savior, and he didn't teach a salvific religion. He taught a way of living and a way of thinking that frees individuals, whether the whole world takes it up or not. I think it'd be great if they did, but I don't think it's likely to happen either. It's the nature of the world. Well, thank you for a great class. Next week, we're going to start the Truth of Happiness Dhamma study over the course of about 12 weeks, depending on the weather. And we'll finish tonight with Metta. So find your relaxed meditative posture. Excuse me. Gently close your eyes. Gently close your mouth. And holding your back straight, but not stiff. Your ears aligned with your shoulders, your nose aligned with your navel. And again, becoming mindful of your in-breath and your out-breath. And these are the Buddha's words on Metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class. Peace.
Do we need to put the cushions away?
Nope, they can stay right there.